right, welcome back in. This is season 6, episode 47 of the Outlap F1 podcast. It's our 2024 Qatari GP race review show. You've got Andy and I'm along with Cody, and we just wrapped up talking about the sprint shootout, and the main qualifying, which saw just a couple of interesting stewarding decisions, and that would be a theme that would carry through into Sunday, as it is now time to start the main race recap. And Cody, I don't know if you remember that lovely 9 race streak we had where, we didn't see a safety car.
Yeah, I definitely remember, and I think this race had enough to cover all of those.
Yeah, exactly. If you wanted to get your safety car fix, boy, this race just told you to hold its beer. So going out, our non-classified finishers, and there are quite a few of them. The first two who did not make it out of the first corner, that would be Esteban Ocon and Franco Colapinto. And that is the last little bit of wheel turn for one Esteban Ocon in the Alpine, as it has now been confirmed that Jack Doohan will replace him in the Alpine for the race in Abu Dhabi. So Esteban Ocon's Alpine career ends in a gravel trap in Qatar with no laps being turned. The next non-classified finishers were Lance Stroll, and that can't be right. Lance Stroll and Sergio Perez. And then Nico Hülkenberg had himself a DNF as well. I'm being stupid because my notes said Lance Stroll and Lance Stroll, so I'll just let you in.
He was so bad, he got not classified
twice. This is what happens when you cut and paste stuff. But P15 was Alex Albon, P14 was Liam Lawson, and P13 was Yuki Tsunoda in the V-Carb. So besides Lance Stroll squared, which would be one hell of an engineering feat, thoughts here in the back markers?
Well, it was very interesting that we actually got a full-on crash, like right out of the gate, which we haven't seen a whole lot of lately. As you said, we've had a very long string of races that either didn't have a full safety car or didn't have any safety car at all. It was starting to get a little freaky. We have had a little bit more of that recently, but this one opened up with safety car conditions where Esteban Ocon and Franco Colapinto and I believe it was Nico Hülkenberg all ended up in a kerfuffle together. Unfortunately for Esteban Ocon and Franco Colapinto, they were out on the spot. And as you said, it came out afterwards that Esteban Ocon is a member of Alpine, no longer, cutting his career short there by one race, which to me is a pretty dirty move, considering he does have their only race win while being the Alpine branded team, and he did just get that monster P2, ended up being an Alpine double podium in Brazil. So it does seem like a sour way for him to go out. That's just my opinion on that. Also really bad for Franco Colapinto in the Williams, because Williams just cannot seem to catch a break. Fortunately for them, at least, his car did not seem to be completely destroyed. So hopefully it won't cost as much money as it has in recent times to fix it. But maybe that's just trying to look at the glass half full.
Yeah, I mean, again, the one team that you wanted, it just to wish for, just get through this thing clean. That did not happen for the Williams, certainly a Franco Colapinto there. They are literally holding their cars together with Bondo and super glue and all sorts of stuff. And that was a theme that we're going to see as we get into the midfield in just a little bit, when some of that Bondo failed a little bit. But yeah, I mean, I look back here and, the Esteban Ocon situation apparently is some sort of a trade, because he's going to Haas next year, and Haas want him to be able to drive for them in the postseason tire test in Abu Dhabi right after, the end of the Grand Prix. So The Monday after Abu Dhabi is traditionally what I like to call drivers walk to other places in their paddock, change uniforms, and go racing in colors that don't look natural, because it's the first time you see people in their new teams and working with their new engineers. And it's like a 9-hour tire test, and you get to do basically whatever kind of program you want. It's not as restrictive as some of the other tire testing programs throughout the course of the year. So, you have an opportunity to actually try to get some development in on this year's machinery before, shutting down for the winter break, and then coming back at the end of the year, and then starting your work or trying to finish your work on your 2025 and now your 2026 design. So, the teams have a lot that they want to do, and Haas has asked Alpine to say, can we use the services of Esteban Ocon? And apparently the deal is that Haas was given the yes to that only if they would not allow Ocon to run in the last race, because Alpine want to take a look at what Jack Doohan is able to do. It gives him a free weekend to go develop in that car. Again, trying to move forward in what's moving forward with both of those teams. It's not the best answer. It's the answer I guess we're going to get. It just kind of seemed real weird, because I think the rumor in the paddock at one point was Esteban Ocon has been fired. Well, no, not really. It was really just kind of a tire test negotiation type thing. But he will not be in the car in Alpine. He will be in Abu Dhabi, and you'll see him on Monday in Haas Ferrari colors. All right. So we shall move into the midfield, and that is where there was definitely lots of drama afoot. P12. A guy who did not have a very good Sunday. Let's put it that way. And let's hope he turns up in Abu Dhabi, because he sounded like he wanted to be done with just about anything at that point. Lewis Hamilton in the Mercedes did not have himself the best of races. P11, just missing out on the points. I told you it got better for Kick Sauber. Valtteri Bottas just misses out on the points, finishing in P11. P10, we have to talk about how he got here. That was Lando Norris in the McLaren. P9 was Kevin Magnussen in the Haas, and here it is. Rachel Fleming, this one is for you. I am stopping everything. P8, Zhao Guanyu in the Kick Sauber. Kick Sauber score points on the season, 4 big points. It matches Zhao's career best in a car that has been so dog crap all year. They did it. They found a set of circumstances that got him some points. Good on you, Kick Sauber. And here's the thing. It wasn't just luck. There was some luck, absolutely. But this was on pace, man. They brought it this whole weekend. We saw it in the qualifying that they were suddenly now doing a lot better than what they were. How many times have we said P20 and P19 is Zhao Guanyu and Valtteri Bottas? You could set a metronome to that. I must have said it like 10 times this season. But oh my God, they get in the points. Well done, Kick Sauber. All right. P7, Fernando Alonso in the Aston Martin. P6 was Carlos Sainz in the Ferrari. P5, Pierre Gasly at P5. Pierre Gasly in the Alpine. Brazil was not so much shocking. Now is it? Maybe we should be actually paying attention to what they're doing here. And P4 was George Russell in the Mercedes. Wow, we've got a full midfield to get to. Cody, where do you want to start?
Yeah, there are so many things to talk about here in the midfield and why certain people ended up here. In fact, we could even talk about why certain people didn't end up here. Sergio Perez probably should have finished in the midfield. He didn't, because he spun himself around during a safety car later in the race. Apparently, there might have been a mechanical issue that contributed to that, or maybe they're just trying to save face. But either way, it was not a good look for him. The big thing here, as you said, Zhou Guanyu finishing in the points, finishing with 4 points, which a lot of stats have been thrown around that he has scored more points in this one race than Sergio Perez has in the last several.
Oh
so the burns
God.
keep coming. But yes, fantastic for him. We do know that he's, in all likelihood going to be without a Formula One drive next year. So it is good to see him come out of this season with some points to show, especially, as you said, with how bad the Sauber car has been. But it wasn't just him. Valtteri Bottas just barely missed out on points himself, finishing P11. So they definitely have found some sort of improvement, or the conditions at this track were just right for their car. They did really push for it. Joe came over the radio at one point, doing the classic thing, telling his race engineer to just shut up and let him drive, which was pretty fun. But definitely just an overall feel-good moment for the sport. I think everyone was very happy to see him finish in the points and see that Sauber is not going to finish the year without any points. Next one, I think I'll just touch on here, was Pierre Gasly. He is finding pace in that Alpine where there was none before. How many times earlier this season were we making fun of Alpine relentlessly for how much their car sucked and how they were tussling with each other? And somehow they've turned it around enough that they are, in all likelihood now, we're going to finish in 6th place in the constructors standings. It's not done and dusted yet. You've got Haas that's going to still be fighting for that P6 spot. But if you had told me at the beginning of the season that they were going to somehow turn around and get up to P6, I would have thought you were full of crap. And it is amazing to see what he is doing with that car now.
Not only amazing to see what he's doing in the car, just kind of in general, but it's just amazing that he manages to get P5 in this race. Because in one of the safety car restarts, I don't know what he saw or didn't see, but there's the corner, and there goes Pierre Gasly. And it looked like he was going to end up in the gravel, in the kitty litter, and day done. Too bad, so sad. Haas is going to waltz their way to 6th place. And then, for whatever reason, he gets it back on the track. I don't know if he had flat spots on his tires. It couldn't have been a fun car to drive after that off. But he made it work. He kept it on pace. He held off Carlos Sainz. But we have to talk about why he was a little bit compromised. We have to talk about Lewis Hamilton and why he was a little bit compromised. And we have to talk about Lando Norris and why his car wasn't compromised, but he was way the hell down. It's all interrelated. We talked about the Williams getting held together with Bondo and super glue and all that stuff. And yeah, something kind of failed on the Williams car. Alex Albon's, it's lap, I think, 29. Alex Albon's wing mirror, which, most F1 drivers say the mirrors aren't worth crap anyway, so who cares? But it is an appendage. It is tied to the car. And when it falls off, it's a problem. Let's put it that way. So let's talk about it was the turning point of the race. It caused all the fortunes to either raise up or slide, depending on who you were. That wing mirror goes off. And then everything just kind of got a little weird. It got weird on the timing. It got weird on what the new race director was going to do with that mirror, or more specifically, what he was not going to do. And then we got some weird a zone is double waved yellow, and then it's not, and then it's slippery surface, and nothing looks right on TV. And it just adds up to mass confusion for about 7 laps. I would say anywhere from lap 30 to lap 38 was just complete mass chaos and pandemonium. So I'll try to explain what I thought I saw. I actually had to go back and rewatch this sequence. I'm kind of glad I did, because I would have been really mad at almost the wrong thing. So it's worth, if you haven't watched it a second time, it's worth going to kind of watch it, knowing now what happened, to kind of understand a little bit, at least what happened. Whether or not it's right or not, it's what happened. So the wing mirror falls off, and the first response, and this also got really weird on the timing, was to throw in that it's right at the beginning of the first turn. It's right in the main passing zone. They threw, at least initially, a double yellow flag for about, I would say, 30 seconds. But on the timing screen that I get on my iPad, which is supposedly the one that's connected to, as much real time as you can get, it would come up yellow flag. And this happened on TV as well, on the scoring pylon on TV, where it was going yellow flag, track clear, yellow flag, track clear, yellow flag, track clear. And then it said yellow flag for about 30 seconds. And then it went back to track clear. So the mirror falls off. They throw a double yellow flag. And then drivers go past. And the natural thing you think is going to happen is that has to be moved, where here comes either a VSC or a full safety car. I was thinking this is the perfect time to do a VSC. This is what they did in Miami when Max hit the bollard, and the bollard was bounding around, under the bridge there in Miami for the 4 or 5 laps, and it got close enough to where, they said, time to throw a VSC. They said Marshall went out, grabbed it, came back in, the VSC ended, everybody back to normal. For whatever reason, that does not happen. And then at one point, they even just declare the track clear. And I'm like, that is the strangest thing, because everybody knew the mirror is still there.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we have had times before where I've even seen stricken cars off the firing line stay on there, and they didn't want to throw a safety car. Perfect example of that is Lando Norris, I want to say in 2019 in Canada. His car died at the end of the pit lane. He lost drive, but the pit stops were done. Nobody was expecting to go down there, so they just kept the end of the pit lane a double waved yellow till the end of the race, and they let the race go without a safety car. And they got away with it there. So it's not completely uncommon to see stuff off the firing line not be adjudicated right away. But in this case, where it was on the track is in the one passing area that's going to happen. And it just kind of sat there, and you're watching this thing for 3 laps. Then they say the track's clear, and you're waiting. Somebody's going to try to go to the inside, try to make a pass for position. And lo and behold, here comes Valtteri Bottas in his kick Sauber, feeling himself because he's doing well. Car's on pace. He might get in the points, and the mirror gets shattered. And it's not even it's like comic book shattered.
It's like confetti.
Yes. He destroyed it. Absolutely destroyed it. So now there is glass, there's carbon fiber, there's shards of this thing all throughout the end of the straight. Even obviously now getting to the racing line, because the next 2 victims of this thing become Carlos Sainz and Lewis Hamilton, who pick up punctures and are now driving extremely slow. Now that's bad that you let this thing go that long and end up with 2 cars getting their races ruined because of it. Lewis Hamilton race absolutely ruined. Carlos Sainz very, very compromised because his floor is getting just destroyed and all the good aero bits are just, dying as he's trying to get the car around. So you have that. Why no virtual safety car? I don't know. Can't explain that one.
It didn't make any sense to me because we could all see it on the screen. We could all see that it was in the one part of the track where people are going to be diving to the inside and they're going to run over it at some point. And it just seemed like it would have been so easy to throw a virtual safety car, slow down all the cars for just a minute. You have someone, you go run out there, you grab it, you're off the track. It's over and done with in 60 seconds. It would have been... Yeah, it would have been a piece of cake. Instead, you just left it out there forever, twiddling your thumbs, hoping nothing bad was going to happen until it just got worse, like we all knew it was going to. And yeah, it just was turning into a mess already at that point.
Yeah. And you not only have that mess, apparently when the first double yellow comes out, both the leaders, Max Verstappen and in second place Lando Norris, are kind of right there. And now, here's where TV did everybody, the millions of fans that were watching, a huge disservice because they showed the wrong lap. And when I first saw this, I was apoplectic probably isn't quite the right word. I was ready to throw things. I was ready to hop on here and completely light people up because it astounds me that people who cover this for a living sometimes don't know even what their own looking at. And no offense to David Croft or Jensen Button was trying to do the right thing. Jensen actually asked the right question on the broadcast, but apparently whoever was feeding them was not helping them, because what they showed was a lap with, after they pulled back the double yellow flag and declared track clear, they left out that section as a slippery surface flag. And a slippery surface flag on television looks like crap, because most things on TV, when they are yellow, under a camera and on TV, shift a little bit more to the red. It's just kind of the way the hue works. It's much more orange. I was telling Cody, I said, when we're at COTA and you look at the scoring pylon in COTA and you take a picture of it with your camera, those letterings look pretty yellow. When you watch Circuit of the Americas on television, that same scoring pylon looks very, very orange. So it's very shifted. Even though this is 1080p, high definition, 4K, all of that, it's still a product of being on television. So what they showed was Lando going through at full speed with a slippery surface flag, not a double waved yellow flag, because a double waved yellow is a triangle going up and down. There is motion on the board, and then there should be a flag person waving two flags right underneath it. So what the lap they showed was not right. So I saw the penalty come up. They gave Lando Norris a 10-second stop go for not slowing down in a yellow flag section. And I'm like, are you freaking kidding me? I said, not according to what I just saw, because that's a slippery surface flag. If you go back and look at Lando's onboard, on the actual lap 30, he is going past that zone just as the double yellow is declared. Now, I don't want to also sound like I'm trying to apologize for him, but I'm just going to tell you I know where his eye was going, because he's going into turn one. He's at full throttle. He's trying to. His eyeballs are not looking to the left. To the left. They're looking to the right because he's trying to make the corner. And the zone comes out. There is a flagman there, and by letter of the law, that's an infraction. He didn't see it. He owned up to it afterwards. He apologized to his team. It's an infraction. Now, we're going to talk about a little bit with their adjudication and the 10-second stop-go, which I think is just very weird for what actually happened, given the amount of confusion. But that's a separate issue. So, one, he gets the penalty. And then you get this part under the safety car where, okay, they restart the race. He has to come in. He drops, obviously, to the end. He's like 15 seconds behind. And then if Lando could channel the rage he had in the car and bottle it and take it to him, that's the guy who's going to win you a world championship, because he came out of the pits and he drove like a man absolutely possessed. He erases, I think, a 15-second gap to P14 and then somehow manages to slice and dice his way to the field and get back to P10 after given a very, very harsh penalty. But anyway, I've talked for a while on this. Cody, what's your thought on all of this?
I'm just going to my perspective on the penalty part of it is, in the moment during the race, I thought that the penalty was very, very heavy-handed. A 10-second stop-go penalty is, you have to, for anyone who's not super familiar, you have to go into the pits like you're doing a drive-through. You have to go sit in your pit box for 10 seconds during that, and then you leave. So it's not just a 10-second penalty. It's much more severe than that. It ends up being more like a 30-second penalty. It pretty much will destroy your race if you were running well, which it mostly did for Orlando. He was looking like he was going to finish P2. He ends up getting P10. And the fact that he even made it back up to that was impressive. Now, I did learn after the fact that there is some precedent to show that when drivers make violations like this that are considered safety violations, such as speeding under double yellows, there is that precedent of more heavy-handed penalties. We haven't seen a 10-second stop go in a long time, so I think some people even forgot that something that harsh could be handed out. But at least it has been shown that they have given that before. It's not like they've just decided that they're going to crush Lando. Maybe they did behind closed doors. Maybe they decided they wanted to make an example of him. And we talked a little bit about that before, how if that comes out, it's going to be really bad. But for the moment, it does just look like that they considered that to be a safety violation, and so they made it a harsh penalty. I am a little surprised that they decided to do so, considering the ever-changing flag conditions at that part of the track. It's double wave yellows, and then it's not, and then it's a slippery surface, and then it's finally, after the mirror explodes, finally we end up going to that safety car condition. So, yeah, I think you could have maybe given him a little bit benefit of the doubt and maybe a lesser penalty considering all the nuttiness that was going on, but they ended up going with the severe penalty. Now, I just want to make sure before I talk about this was also during this safety car period that resulted. This is when the Hamilton penalty happened, right? Okay.
So yeah, it's the same. Yeah, so it's the first one. Yeah.
So Hamilton gets the flat tire. He comes in, he changes his tire. They end up declaring the safety car, and because of all of that mirror debris being scattered across the track, now they ended up having the drivers do a pit lane drive through during the laps when they were cleaning up the track. And at one of those times through the pits, I think probably the first time, Lewis Hamilton apparently forgot to put on his pit lane speed limiter, and therefore entered the pit lanes speeding, ended up stepping on the brakes to slow down, and almost had someone run into the back of him because of that.
That was Lando.
So Lando's luck almost got even worse. But at that point, they did hand Hamilton a penalty. I believe it was a drive-through for speeding in the pit lane. And at this point, he's totally not in it anymore. He'd already been having a hard time throughout the whole weekend. Didn't qualify particularly well. Was struggling with understeer throughout the race. Didn't really seem like he wanted to be driving the car. And then when he got the penalty, he pretty much told the team, "Look, guys, I'm done. When I come in, I'm just gonna park the car." And the team persuaded him, rightfully so, to just serve the penalty and then retire, because if you don't serve the penalty now, you're going to have to serve it during the next race in some way, shape, or form. So they did persuade him to just serve the penalty and then retire the car. But it was very surprising to see Lewis Hamilton, here at the end of his career at Mercedes, wanting to throw in the towel early, because he's only got this race and then one more. And, he's going to be hanging up his hat on a career at Mercedes that has been massively successful, one of the most successful driver team pairings that ever has been. And I would think he'd really want to go out on a good note with that, even if he's struggling this year and the team is struggling to get the car working the way they want. To see him want to just give up and be done with the race was kind of surprising to me. And it really just goes to show how frustrated he is with performance right now.
Yeah, I mean that's not the guy that I've watched since 2007, who has always been. He's always been kind of he's what I would say, like if you're he's a guy who feels, and he feels in the car. He's always kind of been that way, and that's why I think a lot of people identify with him, and I think that's one of the reasons he's as popular as he is, because he does show that emotion. And I got no problem with him being emotional in the car. But this is also the same guy that says all the time, these are the greatest fans, this is why I'm here, all of that. And to hear him want to throw in the towel, it's just, I hate to say it, it's just not a very good look for Lewis. And I know he's better than that. And I think maybe even 5 minutes after he calms down, he probably realizes, maybe I shouldn't have done that, or maybe I shouldn't have said that. So As of the time we're recording, he is still scheduled to be in the car for Abu Dhabi. I certainly hope he is. I think I want to see him get the send off he deserves. I want to see him in Abu Dhabi making donuts and then doing whatever he wants to do to that car, which probably throw it into a barrier at this point. But he deserves that, and he should be able to do that. And it's strange to me that's where he went mentally. And he's got a legit shot in next year's Ferrari car, which is going to be kind of almost ready to go. Just dial it into his driving style and watch him cook. So, you don't want to see him coming out of this year with a confidence issue. But I also do know that he's not a spring chicken anymore. I know he's in phenomenal shape. I mean, he keeps his body in ridiculously good shape. So I know it's not physical. You just hope he doesn't get some sort of a mental thing that holds him down, especially early on in next year's championship race, because it's going to be on from the get-go next year. You've got everybody who's in the contention to win these races this year is in contention to win races early on next year, unless somebody really botches the car. Unless there is something unforeseen, you're going to have these same players going at it, some in different uniforms, obviously, but a lot of these guys are going to be going at it again next year. So I hope this is just a thing that he can kind of get past. I do want to see him get the send-off. He definitely deserves that. It was hard to watch for a couple of minutes, honestly. And just to kind of to put a bow on Lando's penalty, and we talked about this even in the pre-show, but I just hope that I don't, in 3 months from now, or 6 months from now, or 9 months from now, read reporting that a certain member of the FIA told this group of stewards, given the certain political affiliation going on at the FIA and the political pressure on the FIA president, that he didn't try to tell them, just stick it to these guys this weekend on anything that they do. Because if that happens, that's a big problem. So as long as, yes, there's precedent for it, and no, McLaren is not appealing it or any sort of like that. They took it. They're done. It's done and dusted. It's over with. But I just hope I never hear or read anything like that, because the universal reaction to what he did versus what he got, it doesn't seem to fit. So again, I'm going to stop short of saying anything. There's if you want to go dive into that, there are plenty of places out there that will hear and feed that part of you.
We all thought it at some point over the weekend.
Right. But I'm going to stop short of that because I don't want to be that guy. All right. So we will actually now move into the podium here. And that podium saw Oscar Piastri, who ended up carrying the flag for the McLaren team. It's a good thing he finished where he did. He finishes P3 on the day. P2, the lucky benefactor of the Lando issue, was Charles Leclerc in the Ferrari. He bumps himself up to P2, which is a lot better than he ever thought he was probably ever going to finish. And there's that guy again, Max Verstappen in P1. I said it before. I mean, once he got that car dialed in, Red Bull in clean air equal cargo bye-bye. Especially at the end, a 6-second win over the Ferraris once Lando was gone. We never got a chance to see Lando on the hard tire versus Max on the hard tire, which would have been interesting. But Max clearly had, even though Lando was keeping him honest, 1.5 to 2 seconds, kind of the difference on the medium tire. So we never got a chance to see if the tire delta would have done anything in the end. But yeah, great drive by Max, especially given the form earlier on in the weekend.
Yeah, I didn't think that after Brazil that Max was going to win another race this year. I thought that was going to be what won him the championship, and it was just going to be, maybe a podium if he's lucky, P4 to P6 when he's having a rougher day. But I thought that was all we were going to see from him for the rest of the season. And my feeling on that was still that way after the sprint, because the commentators were saying that this is that sprint is the only race so far this year, other than the retirement, that he had, where he has gone backwards from where he qualified in the race. And so that really made it out to be that his car was pretty shitty and not suited for Qatar, but they made it work. He ended up turning around and getting the pole, and he kept in control the whole race. He made good on his penalty and took the lead right in the first corner, dove down the inside of George, who really didn't have a super great start as it was. He lost a couple positions there. But yeah, Max pretty much stayed in control, if just a little bit, throughout the rest of the race. As you said, it was pretty close. During most of the race, he really never got any farther than 2 seconds out in front of Lando, which in the grand scheme of things is not a big gap at all. You push hard enough for a couple laps and you get into DRS zone, and then everything changes. And yes, because of the Lando penalty, we didn't really get to see that battle come to its climax. After that, it pretty much looked like Max was just going to control it and take it home. But yeah, big benefactor from all this is Ferrari and Charles Leclerc, because it looked like Charles might not even be able to hold on to P2 there at some point. He only finished, like 8/10 of a second in front of Oscar. Oscar was trying to battle him for that spot for a while, but Charles ends up coming out on top in P2. Sorry, I'm getting my names mixed up here. Carlos Sainz, he is the Ferrari driver. He because of the Lando Norris penalty, ends up finishing in front of Lando. So Ferrari takes back the majority of points that they lost in the sprint, and it's still a battle between the two of them. It looks like, it's, at least so far as the points difference goes, it looks like it's still probably going to be McLaren, but it is not clearly so. Things could go crazy, things could happen, and it could go either way now. So we really got to hope for McLaren having a great weekend, a very normal weekend in Abu Dhabi, for them to formally clinch that. And for their sake, I hope that they do, because if they somehow lose the championship, we're going to be coming back to this race and looking at that Lando penalty again with a magnifying glass for the entire offseason, which isn't good for anybody.
Right. Yeah, and the bottom line is McLaren are going to go in with a 21-point lead. Believe it or not, as bad as this race went for them, they only, over the course of the weekend, only concede 3 points. So that actually made me feel better when I actually looked at the points, and I was like, oh, well, that's not quite as bad as it could have been. And as long as they are not nowhere in Abu Dhabi, and I think even they can, if they get both cars home, I think they can even finish 5th and 6th. And if Ferrari 1-2, it's going to be really, really close. I have to work out the math. The permutations will be aplenty as we get closer to Abu Dhabi, I am sure. But they are definitely going to go in still with the high ground. Abu Dhabi generally tends to be a neutral track, so it doesn't clearly seem to favor one team over the other, at least at this point. There is the long straight. McLaren have taken strides in the straights. But a lot of it is kind of medium and high-speed corners, which is better for McLaren. There's also some low-speed corners in it, which is probably more beneficial for Ferrari. So it's going to come down to execution and, just stick to your games and see where this thing pans out. Ferrari have nothing to lose, basically, so they're going to go all out for it. Why wouldn't they? And then if you're McLaren, just for the love of God, keep it clean. Stay out of the steward's room. One thing we didn't even talk about was Oscar Piastri getting investigated in the formation laps on his way to the grid, because apparently he attacked the pit lane and kind of cut off Lewis Hamilton as he was going in during the recon laps. And that ended up getting noted. So, I mean, the stewards, it's a bad stewarding weekend when the F1 dock spot gets throttled on X. And it happened again. Like, for a day and a half, the dock spot goes quiet because it tweeted too many times too quickly. So let's just put that into perspective as to what we had. But at the end of the day, good on you, Max. And good on you, Oscar, for coming home. And good on you, Charles, for taking advantage when you can. So we got a fight. I'm up for a fight. All right. So we're going to take a quick break. We've talked long enough probably about this race. We're going to come back. We'll talk about where the points are. We'll open it up to your thoughts in the fan email segment. Again, we got some really good ones here. We'll hand out awards, talk a little bit about predictions, and wrap this puppy up. So come on back.